everybody. My name's War of Noise because that's what this is. Hey, when I say Tulsi Gabbard, you say Assad Apologist. Russian Assad. Who? Hard pass. Right? Remember that. That's what you're supposed to say. Put that off to the side real quick and let's go into the Wayback Machine and think back to a time where we invaded this one Middle Eastern country because the evil dictator there had chemical weapons, which he has used on his own people, which made it that much more believable. And so we went to war there and discovered that there were, in fact, no weapons of mass destruction. It turns out that there were, though, but not the kind that we said there were, not the kind that we said we needed to go to war over. There were a bunch of them. They were very old, and they were made by the West. That's pretty embarrassing. That's why this was classified. The more you know, right? And then there was this one other time in 2011 where we invaded a Middle Eastern nation because of the evil dictator who had chemical weapons and was killing his own people. And so we went in there and took care of him. Hey, you remember that one time in 2016 where we were going to go out to that Middle Eastern nation because of that evil dictator who was using chemical weapons on his own people? And then we actually weren't going to invade, but we sort of were already there, and then it kind of turned out that maybe the whole chemical thing wasn't necessarily completely true. Here's something you may not know. Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, and Assad all made moves to threaten the United States' oil hegemony or their allies over the region right before their countries got torn apart. I know that people have talked about this as if it's a conspiracy theory. I understand that, but in layman's terms, what we call this is a pattern. Back to Tulsi Gabbard and how bad she is, right? Her being a combat veteran, having been deployed in Iraq with a medical detachment, has seen war. She has also seen this same pattern. Now, she gained a lot of attention, and my attention, when she went out to Syria without telling anybody. She went out there to see what was really going on. It was described as a mystery. Why did she do it? It doesn't make any sense. She's an Assad apologist. All right, now look. Most people don't remember, but at the time, the Syrian civil war broke down to 3 outcomes. Either Assad wins, ISIS wins, or we get stuck in forever war number 3. Well, it should be pretty obvious, as we are still in Iraq and Afghanistan, that option number 3 was most likely going to end up being the case. Gabbard saw this coming. She cut ahead of the bullshit. She went out there herself. She brought her cameras, and she showed what was really going on. Another thing that people say about her being a Russian asset. We need to go back a ways for me to show you where that initially came from and why it's wrong. Back in 2017, there was a special Senate race between Doug Jones and Roy Moore. It was reported that Russian propagandists are pushing for Roy Moore to win online using the Russian troll tactics. Well, about a year later, the New York Times reported on a secret project that was carried out during that election to sway votes away from Roy Moore. It was called a secret project carried out on Facebook and Twitter, and apparently too small to have any effect on the race. That's a speculation. And the company that engaged in it was called New Knowledge. Remember that name. This company, New Knowledge, posed as Russian trolls and conservative Alabamans trying to divide Republicans and endorse write-in candidates to draw votes away from Roy Moore. The chief executive, Mr. Morgan, said that he couldn't remember it and that it was a small experiment. The report described itself as a false flag and accused Roy Moore of being a pedophile. Mr. Morgan went on to talk about how it was intended to help understand how these kinds of campaigns operated, psychological warfare campaigns, that is. We thought it was useful to work in the context of a real election, but design it to have almost no impact. Right, sure. Also, now he's remembering all of a sudden. Despite the fact that it had a $100,000 budget, apparently that's not enough to really have an impact on a race, if you say so. This secret project implicated some big-time people on the left, such as the billionaire co-founder of LinkedIn, a founding director of the United States Digital Service from the Obama administration, and someone from the Justice Department, both of whom, of course, declined to comment. And, unsurprisingly, after the race was over, the Facebook page, and I imagine the Twitter accounts as well, vanished and was described as weird. Weird indeed. Flash forward a few months after that, Russia's propaganda machine discovers 2020 Democratic candidate Tulsi Gabbard. The Russian propaganda machine that tried to influence the 2016 U.S. election is now promoting the presidential aspirations of a controversial Hawaii Democrat who earlier this month declared her intention to run for president in 2020. Several experts who track websites, social media linked to the Kremlin, have also seen what they believe to be the first stirrings of an upcoming Russian campaign of support for Gabbard. Since Gabbard announced her intention to run on January 11th, there have been at least 20 Gabbard stories and on 3 major Moscow-based English-language websites affiliated with or supportive of the Russian government. Okay, you know what? Good for them. If they support something, does that mean now you have to oppose it? Just think about that one. Don't let them play with you like that. But moving on, take a guess as to who these experts are. That's right, friends. The cybersecurity firm New Knowledge. 3 of the top 15 URLs shared by the 800 social media accounts affiliated with known and suspected Russian propaganda operations that are probably New Knowledge themselves were about Gabbard. New Knowledge, the company the Senate Intelligence Committee used to track Russian activities in the 2016 election. Okay, so these guys were caught lying. They were caught posing as Russian trolls and then reporting on themselves saying, oh, Russian trolls are supporting Roy Moore. Well, let's think about this one, guys. Why would the powers that be have an interest in slandering Tulsi Gabbard? Now, I've done my homework on Gabbard, and I know that for most of her political career, she has advocated against regime change wars, which is what we are doing over there. She has advocated against war hawks, especially on the left, and she has also warned people about the military-industrial complex. Now, I'd like to remind a lot of people again that you still oppose her, and you probably don't know why. It seems like she stands for a lot of things that you do. It seems that she supports a lot of things that you do. Furthermore, she fits into the profile of a young, non-white woman of color. She's a veteran, and she's got her shit together. So why is it that she is so opposed? Well, I have a theory. She stepped down from the DNC to support Bernie Sanders in the 2016 primary. She turned her back on the big money and the big establishment. She turned her back on Hillary Clinton. And she turned her back on all the big dogs. That's why. So, for your consideration, maybe you got used. Maybe you bought into the noise and fulfilled someone else's agenda. There's a lot of noise, especially around the election. Now, because of the pandemic, it's hard to keep track of all this shit, I understand. But please reconsider your position on Tulsi Gabbard. Please consider the idea that maybe there are forces at work in politics that don't want these wars to end, that don't want that secret revealed, and that they are not exclusively on the right wing. What a thought. So think about that one. Look into Tulsi Gabbard. She probably supports a lot of things that you do. And leave a comment. Let me know. Until then, have a good night. Tune out next time.